Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, where you're going to recap the Emerald City Invitational 4 or 3, where you're going to recap the return of EBI on EBI 19. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Josh.
How you doing, Josh?
Well,
it's been a while since we had you back on.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Busy.
It's good to see you. We got to train on Wednesday. That is a story.
In the
Which
Nogi. I don't normally do
that's
either.
That's a story for the outro, definitely.
Yeah.
It was fun. But on the outro, it's worth it. You should listen. Before we get into those recaps, there's Fight to Win is also happening this next week, but we do not have a card and a lineup for that, so we are unable to preview it, but we will probably recap it this coming week. Biggest news this week, aside from like ADCC trials, are a-coming. I got tickets. I got hotels. I'm going. Super excited. I'm looking at those divisions. I'm thinking about how the seating is going to work. I'm thinking about the seating for people who placed at trial at the East Coast trials. They're going to be seated higher. I think the divisions are almost full, Josh. Do you remember if 77 kilograms is full now? I think there was only
just about. I think
there's like 4 slots left when I looked.
It's hard,
last
like
week.
keeping track of where everything is, and because everybody posts a whole bunch of shit. I'm looking right now, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to see if there was anything for
Fight to Win.
Fight to Win as well. There are 27 spots left in. This is according to Seth from 3 days ago.
66, right?
Yes, 27 spots left in 66 and 5 in 77.
5. As of 3 days ago, there were 5. So
yeah,
I would kind of venture that there's probably, if that is not closed, there are 1 or 2 slots left. So if you don't know, they're capping divisions for West Coast trials at 256 people.
I wonder why.
That's why. I mean, it makes a perfect bracket.
If you were at the East Coast one, you know why? Because there's a billion fucking people.
Yeah. This is going to be the biggest trials by far. It is weird. I think now that we have caps, it's interesting to talk about that this will be the first capped trials ever. Now, I don't really like that, but I think if you had a shot at trials, you have not waited till the last second to register. You've already registered. That being said, back in 2018, Nick Rodriguez was a late entrant into plus 99. So there are people that are late entrants that do win those events in trials.
Didn't he lose the East Coast one?
He did at Hudson Taylor.
That's right. Yeah. He lost the East Coast one and went to the West Coast one.
But he wasn't, because the story for that was Amanda Levy was going out. And Jay Reglabuto and Amanda Levy, that whole team was training together. They were going out. It was like, or was it, do I have that reversed?
I have no idea.
I might have that reversed. Nick or Amanda came in to trial. I forget which one was coming in late. And basically, everyone was already going out. They decided kind of on a whim, I'm going to go out and give it a shot. I think it was Amanda, maybe. And then ended up winning the trials at the West Coast trials on a late entry. So, again, there are people that decide kind of last minute to go and compete. This is the first time that we've ever had a trials get so large it needs to be capped. I think it's really interesting, again, which is why I decided to fly out to Vegas, just as a fucking fan, Josh. This will be the first time that I'm going to an event just as a fan in like...
I mean, technically, you could be going and covering it. I mean, not saying that.
I mean, we're going to obviously.
There are certain,
but I'm not
media folk.
I think there's no media for this except for the Flow guys.
Right.
So
that's what I mean.
This time, I'm just gonna sit. Rachel and I both bought spectator tickets.
Are you getting You're bringing camera?
Yeah, of course I'm on camera. We gotta shoot the podcast. Like, we're going to shoot the podcast there for day 1 and day 2, as we always do for live events, but I'm going to sit in the stands and just watch and enjoy the event, and I'm not going to run around during the event and, like, try to do other stuff. I'm just going to sit and enjoy, which for me will be the first time in, like, 5 years since we've been running the show, Josh, that I will have done that. So it'll be a nice break from mental health. Very excited for that little jiu-jitsu vacation. We ran through the divisions last week. I think it's worth it to do it again because they're so stacked. We have some, again, these are the same names from last week. So if you've already heard it, jump forward like 10 seconds. We have in the 66 kilogram division, we have Keith Kukorian, Johnny Grippo, Josh Cisneros, Damian Anderson, Ben Eddy, John Calistine, Junior Casio, Andrew Tackett, Elijah Tagalong, and Adam Benayu. 77, we have William Tackett, Majid Hage. I think Majid and, was it Michael Galvao are now announced for who's number 1?
Yeah, I think so.
Which is a dope match.
Wait, was it? It was Jimenez.
Oh yeah, it was Jimenez.
Jimenez and
Galvao. Who is Majid? Majid got a match on Polaris, I think. And I forget who it... Regardless, both those guys are coming in. We have Cody Steele, we have PJ Barch, we have John Zatava, we have Pasado Santos, we have Alan Sanchez, Michael Lira, Pierre-Olivier Leclerc, Kieran Kirchek, who we're going to talk about in spades this week, and John Combs at 77. 88, we got Jacob Couch, Adam Bradley, Kyle Chambers, Sloan Clymer, Hunter Colvin, David Garmo, Jason Rao, Achilles Hosha, Jacob Rodriguez, Benji Silva, and Sean Marco. At under 99, Devontae Johnson, Elder Cruz, Elliot Kelly, Mario Gonzalez, Jared Jopp, and Joe Durkaishing. Finally getting his name right. What'd I say? I got close. I got close. 5 years, Josh. I'm getting closer to his last name. Plus 99, we got Kyle Bain, Damon Ramos, Elliot Marshall, Raymond Alex, and Jezere Childre. For the women, because it's the second trials for the North American, the women ones actually qualify. The women actually qualify now, so the winners for East Coast trials, DeBlas is going to pay to fly out, but the winner at this one actually qualifies. We have Brianne St. Marie, Jasmine Hocha, Natalie Habero, Tammy Musumeci, Alex Enriquez, Raquel Canudo, Heather Rafferty, Lauren Sears, and Brie Robertson. And in the plus 60 kilogram division, we have Kendall Riesling, Elizabeth Clay, Amy Campo, Maggie Grandotti, Aaron Harp, Tara White, and Kat Zingano. That being said, those are just the names we have. Some of those divisions, 66, 77, probably close to 88, have 200 or 240 or 50 plus names. Now, these are the front runners. As of 2 weeks ago, these are the guys that have been announced. These are the names that you're probably going to see moving on to day two, unless, for some reason there's a weird bracketing matchup.
Who knows, especially after this past weekend.
Jesus. So, that is ADCC news. Excited. Everything's booked now. I am amped. I've put in vacation time. Actually, I'm doing it tomorrow, but it'll get approved because I have a ton of vacation time.
I'm taking it either way. So
it's letting you know that I'm not going to be here for these couple of days.
I'm giving you the common courtesy to let you know that I won't be here. And if you don't approve it, I'm still not going to be here.
I'm letting you know that I have time. I have specific time off that lets me go. I'm not going to be here, and then you just go, okay. So that's why I like my job. I had something else I was going to go to. I'm also going to go to the rules seminar again because I want to do that again because I like rules. We reffed in-house scrimmage between the two clubs, under affiliation this weekend. It was great. It was funny to be reffing guys that I coach and having Zach actually coach them because again we both team coach that club and organization, and it was fun to ref 3 hours of my own guys this weekend. Very fun event, very tiring. But
reffing is tiring.
Yeah,
it is a
you've done
job.
You did it for years and years and years, like every third, couple times a month.
There was a while where I was doing it almost like, if not every weekend, like every other weekend.
You've reffed one or two of my matches.
I've reffed a lot of people from the gym's matches, and people have been like, "Hey, that's a guy from your gym," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be harder for them to get."
And that's what I told my guys too. I was like, "Look, the other team gets your back. Like it's going to be a quick count. It's like 6 seconds if the position's good and I like it."
Position
yeah,
for a while,
and I told them all that in the lead up, and I was really happy with the technique. It was definitely the best showing we've had so far for an in-house. We have another one coming up that's kind of the whole affiliation, not just the university clubs. So that'll be in I think next week. So we'll probably do an early podcast recording so I can go and ref at that one too. So that will be fun. Rules seminar for ADCC, kind of switching gears here, April 1st, 5 p.m. I think I bought my tickets for that, but I'm not sure yet.
I have to check again.
I'll check tonight, and I'll book them if I need to. But other than that, the only other jiu-jitsu news that we have is some sort of 1FC news.
That's not the only news. You're skipping over Garry Tonon getting knocked the fuck out.
That's also 1FC news, Josh. Yes.
Wow, you were going towards the card that's going to happen.
So let's talk about
into the past
before we get into the recap section of the show, Josh, which will include Garry Tonon's title fight.
But that's not grappling technically. It's fighting.
We're just talking grappling, about it in the news. So Andre Galvao announced that he is taking a grappling match. I just had it up and I forgot. Versus the double champ in 1FC. Josh, please give me his name as I stall for time.
I don't know his name. I don't have it up. Do you want to know how much this affects me? It doesn't. I'm
gonna watch it. I like 1FC grappling matches. They're fun.
He's going to go against the guy that he's going to blow out of the water more than likely.
Pretty much.
So
it is versus Henner de Ritter. Yep. And exciting. Again, haven't seen Galvao compete since ADCC 2019 versus Felipe Pena. It's in 2 weeks. I'm excited for it. Also announced, we missed it last week, Mikey Musumeci signed with One Grappling, and the Ruotolo brothers signed with One. I don't know if that's grappling or MMA. I think they might be both. Because they're at 18 now.
I don't care.
I care a lot. I've been seeing those kids throw hands, and I'm like,
here's
I'll
the thing.
watch their
Until
fights.
they're fighting,
Yeah.
I don't care. Oh, they're doing a match? Who are you putting them up against? Like, in that organization that is going to threaten them?
Gordon or Galvao. those are the
Like
two.
Garry Tonon?
That'd be fun. I'd watch that, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, for Cade or for Ty, that'd be fun.
Shinya Aoki? It's like...
Yeah. So that's the announcements for like this weekend for stuff that's coming up and that has been announced. Again, Josh is not as excited about those. I'm super amped. I like One Grappling matches. They are always interesting and entertaining. Let's see. Let's talk about it. Really quickly, Garry got knocked out by
Ton Lee.
Kind of a local guy, right?
He trained. He does do some training out of 50-50 with Ryan Hall. Hence why Ryan Hall, I don't want to get into that. I'm not getting into it. It's been a whole hullabaloo. Everybody's holding on to it, making a big deal out of it. It's stupid.
Basically, leg locks. We learned that leg locks don't work again.
Leg locks work. Just don't let the other guy punch you in the face really hard. Mm-hmm. Because when that happens, you get knocked the fuck out.
Pretty much.
That's kind of knocked the fuck out.
That's really, there's not a whole lot more. Like, Garry had some really neat and nice entries for the single leg X.
He tried to strike a little bit. Mm-hmm. He knew damn well that he is not as good of a striker as Ton Lee. He went for a leg, got the leg, but expected to rip it off, and that was not the case.
Ton Lee had some good defense, good hand fighting, good turning out, beating the knee line.
Punched him in the face really hard, and he went to sleep.
Mm-hmm. You can, One has their whole card up on YouTube, so you can go watch it.
It's always on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that happened. If you want to go watch that.
As it happened.
I literally texted you right after he got knocked unconscious.
And then I found it immediately and was like, oh, shit, that actually happened. Josh isn't just messing with us in the morning.
No, it's like...
Yeah. It was like 10 a.m. or something like that?
It was like 10 or 11.
Yeah, something like that. On like a Sunday. So it was...
No, it was like Friday. It was this past Friday.
Josh, I don't know what today. I think it's Monday because we're doing the podcast.
Because I'm here.
Everything's been quite busy. So yeah, that is this week in One FC news. Again, looking for is a great victory for Lee. Looking for Tonon to heal up and get back out there. He puts on entertaining fights. Wish him the best of luck. It's unfortunate to watch a jiu-jitsu guy go and get knocked out, but these things happen when you transition over into MMA.
Sometimes you get punched in the face.
Kind of part of the game. Most good jiu-jitsu guys that come over to MMA take one of these losses.
Ask Damian Maia.
Jacare. Ask Galvao.
Kron Gracie. Ask Andre Galvao.
Did Kron get knocked out?
I think he got submitted.
No, that was Adolfo.
Adolfo.
Adolfo got submitted.
Shoeface.
Hodger.
Ask Hodger. Yeah, ask Hodger.
So yeah, it happens. Let's move on, Josh. Where do you want to move on to? Do you want to move on to Emerald City or Fight to Win? EBI. It's been so long since we've done an EBI. I've forgotten.
Let's EBI it.
Let's EBI it up. Josh, do you want to run through all of from the beginning to the end, the first round, or do you want to start in like the quarters? Up to you.
Let's start at the beginning and then just,
Let's read through the results. We'll make stop-off points at areas that, we find of interest. Oliver Taza defeats Mikey Gonzalez via submission, a heel hook. Pretty deep into regulation. A little bit of time there.
That's what was nice. Like, it started a flow of people actually getting submissions. That's great because normally with EBI,
do you want to say we have 2 EBI events in a row? Do you want to talk about the rules at the end, or do you want to do it right fucking now?
Let's just do it now.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to submit the people, or you go into overtime. Mm-hmm. Grappling Rewind is pretty vocal about how much we hate overtime rules. Yeah. We think they're dumb.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It's a gifted position for a position that you didn't earn in regulation.
When you go into overtime, you're like, okay, one guy got the shit beat out of him and the other one didn't. Sometimes it's a stalemate.
Yeah, and sometimes it's either way. It does happen.
And that's fine.
Yes.
But most of the time, one person gets their shit pushed in, and then...
Because that's usually kind of how grappling matches work a lot of times, is one guy is better and does better shit on top. The other guy is in a defensive,
but still, yes.
is in a defensive position. It's not rare, but it is definitely the exception when you have a very back and forth match throughout.
And that shit makes that shit boring.
Yeah.
But fortunately, there was a lot of submissions, which is always a thumbs
which is the
up
fun
in
one.
my book.
That's what, like EBI. That was sort of what EBI made its name for initially. Was guys really hunting for the sub. I don't know if they
dangled the money in front of them. Right. They were like, "You don't get the subs, you don't get any money."
Like Wagner famously beat everyone in overtime and then won the tournament and then got no money.
$0.
And we were vocally pretty upset about that because a guy went, performed, competed under your rule set, and then he did not get paid. And eventually, you know, I don't believe Wagner has vocally talked about not doing any other events in that format or not getting paid for his matches because, like, of that experience. And which is why we never saw him versus Boogie, because they were going to do a match between Martinez and him that they never could figure out because...
Didn't he do the absolute one with Gordon Ryan, though, too?
It was before. That was before.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he would... And Craig Jones was in that. Yeah, they went before. And then
it's hard keeping track of that.
That's 6-7 years ago at this point. That was a long time ago.
It was like 4 years ago.
No.
Or 5 years ago. It was during the podcast. How long have we been doing this? I don't even remember.
2017.
Has it been that long?
It's been a long time, Josh.
Wow.
Getting old.
Wow. Anyway.
So, moving on. Again, I'm specifically not a huge fan of overtime. The more we do this, the more I like points. I'm not a big fan of how it works, but luckily for this EBI,
there was
we had hella
submissions,
and it was good. So Taza starts it off with a really interesting kind of backstep into... When Taza does something interesting, he doesn't backstep all the way through and under and lift you on top. He will backstep onto your knee, and then he will dive his head forward, functionally kind of trapping you. Yes.
He does that, like, underneath roll, because he tried doing it at a certain point where, unless I'm thinking of Frank Rosenthal, I mean,
versus
I
mean, they do play a similar game,
but I think it was Taza that started, like, literally diving underneath of the leg, like he was going to try to go to the back not in this
like a ninja match. Like almost like a ninja roll. Yeah,
but that's the way he like tangles up the legs. It's very interesting and very like cool to watch.
Yeah, it's just a way that typically people don't fight for the outside heel hook that
exactly
way. So he gets this first match versus Mikey Gonzalez, gets it done via submission. Next match we had David Garmo defeating Vinicius de Jesus via heel hook, a pretty quick heel hook. Garmo basically counter heel hooks out of it, and I was like, good on Garmo.
Yeah, because
he was
in him. He's the last few times I've seen him get in leg lock battles, he's lost. Like he's gotten heel hooked. Not saying like his most recent matches or anything like that, but anytime I see him, like he either goes for the knee bar most of the time, or somebody's like trying to rip his leg off and it gets ripped off.
Yeah. Garmo's also a guy that we noticed, like, and we'll talk about it in kind of his next match in the quarterfinals. Like, to his credit, competes a lot and does not let people break his shit. Where it's like he gets got and he's like, cool. And then we'll see Garmo in another couple weeks. Whereas other guys that compete at that frequency, they will get caught, they will get ripped on hard, and then cool, that guy's out for 8 months. Again, like be like if you're gonna compete a lot, be like Garmo and like beat guys, and then when you get got, be like, cool, little fight another day.
It sucks that you lost, but you know.
I want to see you fight. I want to see you fight in 2 weeks. Like, go do it. So, Oscar De Los Santos defeats Osvaldo Canmier via submission, triangle choke, deep into regulation. We had Nick Ronan defeating Omar
Emanoli
via escape time in overtime. That one went all the way through. We had Pablo Lavaselli defeating Nathan Orchard via submission. This is a Kimura, like right in the middle of regulation. This one I think surprised a lot of people because Orchard historically has done very, very well in the EBI rules.
He makes it to the semis or the finals every single time.
And we, for years on the show openly, we like picked against him, and he consistently...
We always picked against
fucked up our brackets. And like, I remember you yelling versus his match versus AJ Agazarm at one of the earliest submission undergrounds ever. He beats AJ Agazarm, and it's like a match that we thought AJ should take. And Orchard has consistently... Like
AJ should have taken that, but AJ is also one of those people that consistently will be shit the bed, as I like to say.
So Orchard came out, and Lavaselli gets a really interesting, like a super, super deep Kimura, almost kind of like from a guarded position, and then wrenches it back all the way, and Orchard's forced to tap. Again, the commentary staff was extremely surprised because Orchard, I think they had Orchard as one of the top seeds in this because, again, historically they always do.
And also, like, it's biased towards anybody from 10th Planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of openly biased, which
it's trying
I'm
to
okay
promote.
with.
It's trying to promote 10th Planet.
Yeah.
And in the scheme of things, like, especially over the past, I don't know, 10 or so of them, they haven't been winning.
Mm-hmm.
And spoiler alert, somebody from 10th Planet, not the main school, but still somebody from 10th Planet won this whole thing. So anyway, let's keep going on. We're going to end up not talking about it. So you need to
Yeah, sorry. I was looking to see something else. We had Aaron Harris defeating Khalil Fahad. What is his name? Fadala. I always want to make the double L a different sound.
That's okay.
Via armbar in overtime, we had Alan Sanchez defeating Danny Stoffi via a heel hook, like pretty quickly in the regulation, like a minute and a half in to regulation.
Those are always great. These zip through, like.
Yeah, it was like
I was working, and there was definitely during this match. I'm like, okay, it's starting, and I turned around to do something, and then I turned back around. I'm like, well, this is over.
Yeah,
and.
So,
yeah.
Funny enough, so last match in the first round was John Combs defeating Ivan Leva via submission, a guillotine choke. I loved this guillotine choke from Combs because you could specifically see where he had his hands and sort of what makes, like, in quotes here, a Combotine. Like, this was a high elbow guillotine, but Combs, like, S-grips his hands, pushes up, and then he wings his arms, but almost like he's going to do an arm-in guillotine. He sweeps you over with it, and he finishes with, like, a pat. It's like, it is legitimately a guillotine that you do not see very frequently, and for once, the camera was on his hands, and you can see the different grip that he uses, and he did it from the chin strap, and then he changes his hands to the chin strap, he goes over on it, he cups, he turns everything over, and I went, oh, yeah, because I've seen his instruction. I was like, I very much like John Combs' guillotine, like how he does it, how he talks about it, how he explains it. But in competition, they're usually to his back or to his side, or it's blocked by the arm.
You just don't get to see the
You don't get to see the hand switch. Yeah. And you can see him cupping the chin and turning over. It was just a great display of like, oh, yeah, that's what that looks like in competition. That's how he controls the head. That's how he controls the shoulders. That's how he then goes to his back, and he keeps the grip, and he keeps the head. And it looks like an arm. It finishes it like an arm-in guillotine, but without the arm in. It's just a very unique guillotine finish. Again, like to see John Combs do guillotines. I'm very, very biased towards that particular choke, so it was good to see John Combs getting another one. I think he finished one again a couple weeks ago on Fight to Win, something like that.
Yeah,
he was the main event.
I believe so. Yes.
Moving on to the quarterfinals, we had Oliver Taza defeating David Garmo via submission. You have Just Magazine results up here. It's listed as just leg lock. This was neat. This was just an outside straight ankle lock with knee on the mat and then knee on the top. So there wasn't a leg pinch here. It was just like a low side ankle lock. And it's not something you see very frequently, but you know just the insane squeeze that Taza has. And then what I thought was very funny, you typically will see Taza always, and really anyone in Nogi nowadays, go for the heel hook. This was Taza just finishing a straight ankle lock, waiting for Garmo to come back up so he could thread the leg through and get the heel hook, and then deciding, oh, Garmo is just bellied down here and turned away. I'm just going to turn through and just yank on the foot because I probably have enough pressure here. And it was just a really interesting way to finish that particular leg lock.
Yeah. And again, always good to zip out of of matches.
We had 2 matches in a row that were under a minute. This one was just...
With Nick Ronan's match, too, I was watching it, I was like, what's going on right now? And I was like... Because, again, I was on the in-between. I was like,
the camera's also to Nick Ronan's back here. So, for the Oliver Taza one, you could see, and then, 30 seconds later, it's Nick Ronan versus Oscar De Los Santos on the mat, because Taza finished in less than a minute. And, again, EBI... I like that they
keep it going.
I like that they don't do big. There's no big breaks. They one guy finishes, they announce it, they put it back.
There's still big breaks.
Still big breaks.
We have to watch terrible commercials.
We do, but you can skip them. So
not when you're watching it live.
And they don't pull the entire screen away and show a little Caesars ad during it. We'll get into that because it's becoming a problem. Yeah, it was immediate, and then we saw Nick Ronan here immediately come out. Pulled the legs.
I was like, oh, wait, this match is over? I was like, God damn.
Yeah, in the whole video is like 4 or 6 hours long. It's just like a 2-minute series, and you're halfway through the quarterfinals. And I went, oh, we are going. Like in the quarterfinals, we had 4 subs in a row. Okay,
which is fantastic.
Yeah, which is why we used to really like EBI, because they'd have like really interesting bracketing, and you'd have guys get a chance to fight, and to sub their way through. We had Pablo Lavaselli defeating Aaron Harris via rear naked choke, again, quickly
under 5 minutes.
in regulation. It's like 3 minutes in regulation. Awesome to see. We had Alan Sanchez defeating John Combs via a Dead Orchard. Again, great camera work here. It was awesome to see Alan.
Well, those transitions, and then he's like locking up, and I was like, he's got both arms in. He should be. And I was like, oh, he's defending it. I was like, oh, yeah. I know it's about to happen. And he just like yanked it over, and I was like, well, that's the end of that. And right afterwards,
well, Sanchez traps, but Combs basically he gets one arm in, and then he has the other arm in, but it's like not super deep.
It's across, trying to grab his own shoulder, but the arm is over top of it. So it's like you're setting yourself up to get caught in this submission.
Yeah. And Sanchez, to his credit, like locks up. He gets his leg over top of the shoulder that Combs doesn't have all the way through. So functionally, with the back of Sanchez's thigh and calf, he keeps Combs from being able to yank that out or really be able to posture away effectively.
Or do anything. And he locked it up so he couldn't do it.
And he locks all the way to the triangle with both arms in. And then you see him just explode like out. And you see Combs try to pull away at the same time that Sanchez gets to his, turns the angle and then taps really quick. And it was just, again, it's funny Nathan Orchard's on this card, doesn't get to Dead Orchard. Alan Sanchez in the quarterfinals gets it. It's a beautiful setup.
It's even wild. Like you see when Sanchez lets go, you see Combs, like he shakes his head like, God damn it, I can't believe.
Oh yeah,
I got caught in that.
But like again, to Sanchez's credit, like he was methodical in like in that. There was a moment that Combs started to defend it, and you saw Sanchez posture him down and then lock, and then he was able to turn his hips to get the legs locked like perfectly while he was defending Combs's like pull. Yeah. And it was just it was one of those great moments where you watch a guy throw up a sub, you watch a guy defend properly, and then you see the adjustments from the player throwing the sub in order to deal with that proper adjustment and then lock it up and tighten into place. It was just, again, really, really great sub. It was set up in a beautiful way.
Good transitions. Like you can't, it's not like, oh no, he happened to catch Combs. Like he got him. He set it up and it was good. Combs just knew, like he sat there and shook his head and went,
you're like,
I got
fuck. Yeah.
Damn it.
So that was the quarterfinals. Again, quarterfinals, a lot of fun. Under 10 minutes. The entire quarterfinals were quick.
Just below like 10 minutes. It's great.
Which is awesome because we had some matches that went the full 10 minutes and then overtime.
And into overtime, the full like
3 rounds of overtime.
4 minutes each result, like another 12 minutes, give or take.
Something
plus
like that.
Plus like setup time. So yeah. Anyway, into the semifinals.
We had we had Oliver Taza defeating Nick Ronan via decision. This was fastest escape in overtime. Again, you go to overtime.
Both of them were going after it. You can tell now, especially since we're in this era of leg locks, like a lot of people, that's what they try to go for mainly, and then everything else is like secondary to you trying to rip their leg off. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's a great way to finish the match pretty quickly, is just breaking somebody's leg.
Not always available
to do it.
You're not gonna get deep on both guys. Again, I think these guys have trained together. Or is Nick Ronan a Sarah BJJ guy? I forget where he was out of.
Ronan is a Sarah BJJ guy, but what does that mean? That just means he's a Henzo offshoot. So I'm pretty sure they've probably trained together at a certain point, not extensively.
Yeah. They definitely were in New York at the same time, training at Henzo's at the same time, or Sarah.
More than likely, yes.
With him and Rao and stuff. This one had a really interesting I wouldn't say interesting. Overtime. There was a moment in overtime that I found intriguing. Is both guys knew the rules, and there was a lot. They both wanted to go on the overtime, and they were both fighting for like grips that they maybe shouldn't kind of have in a way they maybe shouldn't have it. And the ref had to come over consistently and like put them like, no, this.
Are you talking about Sanchez and Taza? Did you just jump ahead?
No, Sanchez and Ronan.
Okay.
Yeah. No, Sanchez.
Because that kind of happened during the finals.
It happened in Sanchez and Taza too, but this match I remember because the training partner thing came up, and I went, DDS and Henzo's would have been when these guys were there together.
Yeah.
EBI would have been a thing that everyone on the team was doing, and they would have been doing specific training for it. So both these guys have probably done rounds together with that. It was interesting to see kind of how contentious it got in that restart, considering both guys have probably trained together in those scenarios. It was just
You're always going to, you're going to try to get the jump on it to begin with.
Especially when there's money on the line.
Yeah.
So next match, we had Alan Sanchez defeating Pablo Lavaselli via submission. Again, a rear naked choke in overtime.
I didn't predict at all Sanchez being this deep into. Like, I know he's good.
We've seen him be good. We've never seen him make it to a major final that we've covered on the show.
Yeah. So I was not expecting him to be there, but it was nice seeing that. And then going into the finals, you have Alan Sanchez defeating Oliver Taza via fastest escape. This again was another time where they're like fighting to get out as quickly as possible. Yeah. So you see like
there was a really
you see the referee and you see him like using his knee as another point so nobody could sit back too quickly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's
the meta now is
that's
sitting back as
into
fast
that,
as you can.
And falling back and trying to get to that body triangle.
Yeah.
But again, the same thing is with the person defending, launching yourself back as quickly as possible so the person can't lock up the body triangle and you can start escaping rather quickly.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It was a great win for Sanchez, by the way. It was a tightly contested match.
There was a really interesting moment in the final, in the overtime, because Taza goes to the arm. He doesn't go to the back. Goes to the arm, and he locks it up. He locks up a deep, like not a Kimura grip, but like a arm and elbow grip. Mm-hmm. And then you see Sanchez go, and Taza tends to grab very, very deep on the leg when he's going for the armbar or for any sort of that control for the armbar grip. And Sanchez goes, and goes and enters, it's not a reverse triangle, but it's a triangle set up like a reverse triangle where he sets one leg through and then he sets the initial leg as his second leg. That's going to be really hard to explain kind of in audio format here.
You're going to have to watch it to really
go back and watch it. It's the reverse way you usually set up a triangle. He basically sets up the leg that he's going to be locking under first. And it's like, it's something you see a triangle from the bottom done like this occasionally. It's not a common submission. It's where you can get that mirrored 50-50. You get that mirror top and bottom triangle.
Yeah.
That was this but it was because Taza was in the same position he would be in if he was working triangle from the top because his arm was pushed so far through. Sanchez went, I'm going to go for it. And I looked at it and I went, no way in hell Taza taps to this. But it is tight enough where Taza has to like be mindful of where his head is and has to like get crushed a little bit and like pull out and then work to keep the arm as like a secondary thing almost. And it was just a very interesting strategy. The commentary staff talked about like, oh, what happens if he, taps? Depending on the EBI rules, and it's changed over the years, a tap in any one is a tap. So if you tap the guy while you are defending, you win in that overtime. Now, I don't know how the rule has changed since then.
Who knows? But it was
we have seen it before. We have seen people get subbed
but
while defending.
Also, think about it when I think it was Taza I want to say it was Taza when he was trying to escape, but he would get to his back and he'd be in mount and he's like tapping the guy. And I'm like, I'm actually shocked that they're not dumb enough to be like, well, he's tapping. And it's like, right. No, he's telling the guy to stop.
Hey man, this counts. You're mounted now. I will win.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was,
and the ref wasn't reacting quickly enough to it.
Right. There was some time there.
We're out of this, and you're still counting the time, and you shouldn't be.
Because it's when we've talked about it, there are some specific criteria for escaping, but in jiu-jitsu, it gets a little gray where it's like, how much of an overhook on the head do you still need?
What are you finishing with that from mount? Though?
Yeah,
you're not.
But I'm just saying, like, it doesn't. We would like to make it really clear cut. We do a grappling sport where there's a lot involved. It's not necessarily always super clear cut. It's an unfortunate side effect of the rules. So that was the win. Alan Sanchez gets the win. I think it was very, very close for time.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I forget the actual.
He got out like, oh God. It wasn't significant. where it was like, oh, he had like a minute and a half.
Yeah, he had 4 minutes to his 2. Like it was.
No,
I think
it was fairly close.
It was within a minute. I think it was like 20 seconds, but again, could be wrong. I remember, the final, but I don't remember the exact time because I go typically as soon as the final gets read, I just go X. And yes. I then have to open up the whole thing if I'm listening to a post-fight interview. It's just we watch so much jiu-jitsu, it is just ingrained to me once an event ends to just close it, and then frequently I have to go and then the post-fight interview and open it back up and go find my pace again. And I forgot to do it for this one. So, so that does it for EBI Night 19. Some fun matches. Again, I am openly not a big fan of the EBI style rule set, but this event had a lot of fun matches, a lot of guys that I really enjoy seeing. It was a card of people that were interesting that went for the finish. We didn't see any kind of classic matches that EBI gets shit for.
Matches, yeah.
Well, in the matches where one guy just like sits and defends from mount, or like sits on the he's back mount or he's in bottom mount for 7 minutes of the match, just defending and shelling, and then like
going hard
obviously looking for the back. Like I like that. Again, EBI has been gone for a little bit. I like that we are not seeing that employed as a strategy on another EBI event, which is again really why I think towards the end we're not as much of a fan of covering the events. The talent pool dropped. So having an EBI come back with a hot talent pool that we are super interested in talking about, and a huge amount of submissions and people looking for the finish, made an entertaining event. I would be interested in seeing them running an EBI again. Again, I would like to see some modifications to the rules with almost every event, but a fun collection of guys that were highly ranked, and they had a bunch of ranked guys in the division. It was awesome to see. Josh, any closing thoughts for EBI?
No, I'm pretty sure you hit everything on the head that I was thinking.
So let's move on to the Emerald City Invitational. It's weird to cover 2 EBI-style events in the same weekend.
Yeah. I hate the rules.
Yeah.
I hate overtime rules. They're silly.
We've talked.
Are the super fights down lower?
They should be. Yeah, the super fights are here, and the undercards down here as well. Shout out to My MMA News for having a full write-up.
So good.
In a great... Again, I like how My MMA News does it, because usually what they'll do is they'll have a card with the actual physical faces on it, and then they have the lineup for the names, and then they have the bolded winner. It's just it's very, very easy to read as we run through, because my notes are historically dog shit, I think is the technical term for them. So having a real organization come put them together, because we don't do the print side of the show really much anymore, even though we have grapplingrind.com. I don't enjoy doing it. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that people do it, because it's awesome and it's legible.
Yeah.
So
a few of the things from the undercard: Vinny Falzarano versus Eric Naples. Eric Naples winning by rear naked choke. Eric is a somewhat local guy.
Yeah, I've done commentary with Eric a couple times.
Right
now,
and anytime I see him, I just sit there and we'll shoot the shit for a little while. Has a beautiful mullet, and
he dyed it blue, or did he dye green? The end of it is a green.
Either way,
it's atrocious.
Great, whatever. Do you know the haircut that you had for the longest time? I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad, yes.
Josh. He snagged a beautiful rear naked choke fairly quickly into this match. He just went into it. Almost like
the transition was amazing. Yes. Where he just spins around the back and gets there, and almost one fluid motion off of it.
Oh, it was great, and he just snagged it up. Also, someone else that's local to us, Alex Wen, defeating Christina Pinto via rear naked choke. She's been doing way more matches recently. She jumped into the deep end of matches, going against who was it? Did she go against Patty Fontes?
I think so. Yeah,
I think she's gone against Patty Fontes. She beat her. She went against.
Was she in
Grace
Who's Number One?
She was.
She was in that Who's Number One card.
She went against Grace. She lost to her. That's a hard match for anybody. She went against, I want to say, Maisa Bastos, and had a really good match. She recently won some other local stuff as well. And
she might have been on Fury, maybe. I don't recall.
Don't remember, but recently. She was beating the brakes off of people, and that was a continuation from the other night. She just was on top of it, and again snagged up a great rear naked choke. Also, this was during the main card. But Ellis Karadag, again, another local guy.
Yeah, I've done commentary for his events a bunch.
Yep, versus Frank Rosenthal.
I've done commentary for Ellis's events with Eric.
Yeah, there you go.
So again, this is we're very local now. We're in guys that we know a lot, and the guys that we work with a lot.
And Frank is technically now a local guy too, because
he's level X. Yeah, he's
at 50-50.
Yeah.
So
we've seen Frank, I think, a couple of times since the move to 50-50, but I always forget that he's made the move to 50-50.
He's so fucking stocky.
Yeah,
he is thick.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice little back and forth match. Frank, you saw at a certain point, started to like go ahead of Ellis and kept Ellis on like his back foot, and then he just kept going and snagged up a lovely heel hook.
A really interesting setup too. He kind of gets Ellis really wide and kind of unable to get back into his base, and then
Ellis,
up
being
on
the smart person that he is, was like, I am not going to let this person rip my leg off, so tap on to the next one.
Shades of the first Emerald City.
Well, yeah, that was not any kind of chance to tap to that one. That one just got fucking cranked. Anyway, going on to the actual tournament for $10,000. This was great because, again, like leading into this weekend, it's like, oh, you can sort of pick who's going to win, or you think you can.
Yeah.
You know, front runners. Josh Cisneros.
So Miranda in the chat posted the bracket, because we didn't have the bracket when we previewed the event, and we went, okay, so when we on the show really don't like to pick a lot, because
especially me.
Well, it's you kind of started it years ago with like I don't pick without a bracket, because
I don't even like picking with a bracket because anything can happen, and this bracket really proved that.
Yeah.
You know, but you see Cisneros, you see Grippo, you see Holy, Kallenstein, you know, you see all these guys, and Benayoun is also like, he's been on the scene forever. He's a very solid competitor, but you're like, you see Cisneros and Souza, and you're like, those guys are probably going to be the final.
And then Cisneros, you're like, okay, one of those three guys is probably going to pull, because those are the three guys that are the highest ranked, that we see the most frequently, that are always like, the past year, have been just putting highlights on guys with very few losses to anyone outside of like the top 5, probably.
Yeah. But also, again, like, well, here comes Kieran Kachuk, and like,
who's a guy we've seen forever, but we've
seen him forever, but he's just not been
on stuff we've been able to cover on the show.
Not even that, but like he's kind of been like Orchard, where like he'll get kind of far, but then lose.
He'll run into the top guy.
Yeah, you'll run into that. But he, survived it. And this is also a guy that went through the qualifying tournament to get to this part.
Yes.
And then he rear naked choked Josh Cisneros in overtime. And you're just like, well, you just blew up the entire bracket.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But this is partially, and we talked about it last week on the preview, why I like qualifiers so much, because it gives a guy an opportunity who's good enough to be on the level and showcase that he can be on the level to get in the main tournament, which is why ADCC trials are so important. They give people that like, hey, I am this good. Yeah, you don't know who I am yet, but I should be in the big show. Like Kieran winning the qualifier, his first matchup getting matched with, again, one of the top ranked seeds, because you're a qualifier, and qualifiers are usually the lowest ranked seeds coming in. Beat Josh Cisneros in overtime. And again, Cisneros looked very, very good in regulation, but if you're unable to get the sub, and there's not a single sub in this tournament during regulation, he played and worked. When he got the overtime, he was able to thread in a super deep rear naked choke and just like crank and hold and be able to basically. And Josh Cisneros, we know, is super tough. We've seen him blow his leg out and keep going. Like, we know he's super.
Tapped after he blew his leg out,
and then they had a match after.
No. He didn't have a match after that.
I think
that one gi match, he blew out his knee.
Different match.
Oh, okay, we're talking about a different match.
Different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, like you're coming into this and you see these people and you're like, well, this fucks it all up.
Yes.
Moving on, Grippo versus Jordan Holy. Grippo winning via rear naked choke in overtime. His hair is getting shaggier, and it's
like old school Grippo again. Because he was really shaggy at like Brown, wasn't he? 2013, 2012
I remember just
era.
seeing him at like late blue and purple and stuff like that. Like the second Abu Dhabi trials when it got moved from one place in New York to another place in New York.
Yeah, the one you did, right?
I did that one too.
Okay.
And myself and Rick Slomberg were sitting there shooting the shit with him, and I don't even think it was like that long, but he's gotten shaggier and he's part of the quarantine, so you get to roll with the meows and stuff like that all the time. That's great. Finished it in overtime, which was always good. Another shocker going on to the next match.
Yeah, I didn't pick this at all.
No, again, Benayoun is great, but you're throwing him up against Souza, who's, what is he even ranked? He's like top 3, right?
He's got to be top 3. If he's not top 3, he's top 5, and he's a solid top 5.
This is also a guy that, within a regulation amount of time, beat Mikey Musumeci, submitted him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay, you got to tip the match towards him. And Benayoun, took it to overtime and won. And you're just fuck, this whole bracket is all fucked up now.
In the first, I just love this in the first round. It's okay, cool. Well, we now have Adam and Kieran. So 2 of the 3 matches, and then we also have John Calistine beating Pedro Serrano via fastest escape in overtime. That was actually pretty close. But you have essentially 2 of the 4 guys that are favored to win and probably be in the final, take the whole thing.
Taken out in the first round.
Which is okay, this suddenly became, it was an interesting bracket to begin with.
It's an interesting bracket, but it becomes more interesting because
I have less tape on Adam and Kieran. And I'm okay, here are guys that just beat really, really good guys. And now I'm in it. I don't know who they are. I know who they are, but I don't know their game. I haven't seen them on the top of the podium versus guys like this. Now I'm super invested and super interested in where we're going.
Yes. So that puts us in round 2. With Gianni Grippo versus Kieran Kachuk, with Kieran taking it via armbar. It was almost kind of Dead Orchard-ish.
It was off a Kimura. It was off the Kimura.
Yeah, but he had that triangle grip, too, coming off of it. But yes, it was set up from
the camera was a little close. It was kind of hard to tell.
It was on the one side instead of being on the opposite side. But, at the end, I'm oh, okay, he escaped. And then I was oh, no.
And then commentary's going, oh, no, he tapped.
Yeah.
And I went, I wish I could see that. I wish I could see the front-facing angle.
The front-facing angle of it. But again, there were a few times where I thought Kieran was going to win by rear naked choke because Grippo straight up just let him have the arm across the neck, and then he started locking it up, and I was what the fuck is going on?
Grippo has some...
He's got some weird defenses, too.
But he's also got some crazy will. He is a dude...
He's I'll let my shit get choked.
That will let you choke. We saw, again, we've seen it guys that swing mind that are like this, Keith Krikorian and Grippo. We have seen both those guys get not unconscious, but just blocking it with the face and just their face is moved into their body and they're still fighting. Just a level of will and toughness that is extreme. So again, I wish I could have seen a different angle for this, but it was a really interesting Kimura grip to a triangle armbar. I really just couldn't tell exactly what he finished. I think it was the armbar. It
was the armbar. You can see when they showed in the replay, it was the armbar, but it's the transition over what was really cool because, again, it was the Kimura grip, and you're okay, he's going to try to power it through.
Yeah.
And then he's oh, he's going to try to go for this triangle, and it was oh, wait, okay, he escaped. Oh, no, he got armbarred at that last second. You're oh.
Which is a transition we don't see very often.
Don't see it a whole lot. And again, you're fucking up my whole bracket.
Yeah.
Because you're taking out, again, one of the top
the guy that won the 45 bracket. And won it in kind of pretty convincing fashion versus everyone.
But again, it was said a lot over commentary that Kieran's number 9, in 155. So he's not a slouch by any means.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry.
He's not, and we're not.
I
trying
hope that's
to
not coming across on the bracket. Yeah, and on the broadcast.
He is a lot of our focus, or a lot of the focus on a lot of grappling things are the top 5 guys.
Yeah,
and when you're even outside of that top 5 and you're in the bottom 5 or number 6 through 10, yes, you're known about, but you're not hyped up as much unless you're the number 8 seed going up against number 1, things of that nature. And the fact that again, Kieran, who's also another local guy because he's out of TLI, it's awesome to see because, again, you're getting these dark horses. You're not getting the same people winning every single tournament over and over again. Yes, that's cool to see in some cases, but other times you're just like, all right, let me just see something new. And this was all like fresh faces or people that are not number 1 through 5, but they're beating those guys and then getting to the finals of it. And it was the same thing
pulling ranking up. Like, hey, again, exactly. It is an overtime, and that does have a huge...
It has a huge effect on it, but like it's not like Grippo was so far ahead of Kieran. Like Kieran put Grippo in a few troublesome situations or just entanglements really during regulation time. So it's not like, oh, okay, well, Kieran held on by the skin of his teeth and then beat him in overtime. It's like, no. He's
having competitive matches with the guy that's in the top 2 or 3.
Same thing with like Kallenstein and Benayoun.
Yeah.
You know, if you've heard of Kallenstein, because a while he was going on a tear and was just ripping guys' legs off.
And he was the one of the last winners of EBI before it kind of went away and became combat jiu-jitsu.
Like 135 or something like that.
He was the last band. I could be wrong. This was many years ago.
I think that's
because that was all the controversy with him and Cummings. Cummings dropped out. And then
he filled in for Cummings. Yes. But I don't think he won that tournament.
I think he beat Gio. I think he beat Gio.
I can't remember. You'd have to again, I wish all these sites had little clicks to their records and you can just be like, oh, here's this. But Benayoun won by fastest escape, which set up for me, a very interesting finals.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, 2 guys that you could see in the finals, but it wasn't fully expected are in the finals. 2 guys that you know are up there, are not what you would call it. This sounds like bad, but it's not like top tier in the sense of these
are
the
1 and 2 ranked guy, 1, 2, and 3 ranked guy got taken out already,
right?
And then you end up guys that are
still
not
have guys that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah,
it's like those are the guys that are in the, and that sometimes is more compelling to watch than
Gutenberg Pereira beat Mergali. I am invested in Gutenberg Pereira for the rest of that division. I'm like, cool. I want to see how he does versus. Okay, cool. He beat, was it Spriggs? Was it Eric Muniz? And then he went against Pena. But it was those are super interesting storylines. Yeah, Pereira is, and then he wins trials. Pereira is absolutely on the level, but you don't favor him versus Mergali.
But there's also times where you're like, okay, Pans, for instance, Mergali's running through everybody.
Yeah.
And then he gets DQ'd out of the rest of the tournament, and you're like, well, this is bullshit. And it sets up an interesting storyline.
Yeah.
But this wasn't just some bullshit happened and now it's an interesting storyline. It's this is something that is compelling to talk about. It's oh, here's this that's happening right now. Watch it because it's not who you expect to be in the finals. Yeah. And again, it was another great match where they were switching back and forth positionally, and then it went into overtime. And it went to was it the bottom of the second or the bottom of the third overtime where Kieran got it? But I was just I
don't remember actually. It wasn't the first overtime. I know it wasn't the first overtime.
I want to say it was the third overtime.
I think it was the third overtime.
No, I think it was the bottom of the second because I think there was one more overtime to go. Or I don't know. It was at the bottom of the overtime.
A weekend of overtime gets confusing.
The shit gets confusing. It was a great match. It was great to see Adam Benayoun in there make it to the finals. It was great to see Kieran go through not only the entire tournament, but a qualifier to get into the tournament.
And then win.
And then win the tournament.
And then win Renica choke in overtime versus Adam Benayoun. Cool storyline, cool weekend. Again, this...
And you get to watch people. It's the same thing when we first started and we saw the Kasai qualifiers and Juni Ocasio winning.
Yeah. Juni was a purple belt at the time.
No, we didn't know. I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't know who Juni was outside of the New York scene, the New York, New Jersey scene. And then we saw him and we were super hype on him. And he fucking choked... what's his name? Unconscious.
Yep. Who was that?
Some old school dude that trained under Hein Gracie. I can't remember who it was. I'm blanking.
But also the guys were Krikorian. Krikorian we saw through the 10th Planet qualifier to an EBI. Again, at a purple belt. Qualifiers are super important.
It's interesting to see because you see those guys are at a very specific level and then they start to step up. And it's the same thing going back to it. ADCC trials. It's these guys can be on that level. The people that won the East Coast trials, It's like, okay, these guys can compete. Are there other guys that are going to be favored in those divisions? Sure, but these guys are supposed to be there, especially with these tournaments that have, or these qualifiers that have recently happened through ADCC with 200 plus competitors.
Yeah,
it's like if you're going
don't get
through
there
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matches, it's not an accident that you're there.
Yeah,
you know, you had Grippo versus Krikorian, and last second Krikorian chokes out Grippo.
Yeah,
and then you're like, okay, well it's Krikorian versus Kolabate, and then you're like, oh, this 16, 17-year-old kid just is like,
I think he was 15.
Fuck. I think he was 16, but
okay.
You're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Here's this thing. I will
super
say
fun.
What I love deeply is not watching commercials.
Yeah.
During
Flo's got to fix that shit. That's
like do not
terrible.
picture in picture
during a match.
During a match at all. There's going to be in between time.
No,
you can have,
no other organization does that.
You can have those things going on while commentary's talking in between matches.
No, don't interrupt the broadcast.
You can have that commercial. Put it in between the matches. Do not have it during the match. Do not shrink the match to make it even harder to see.
It's like
to show me a little Caesars
I'm watching
commercial,
on a phone most of the time. It's like
or smoking or whatever is stupid. I don't care. First of all, your service is paid for. And it's not cheap.
I pay as much as I pay. I pay as much for Netflix.
It's $150.
I pay what I pay for Netflix a year for Flo.
Well, Netflix is going up now too.
But I'm saying it's $15 a month. I pay.
If you break it, if it's less than that a month, technically, because if you break it down, you know,
but I'm saying
you save 2 months of it at $150. But if you get the month to month, if you can finagle, and you can finagle to get month to month,
you can.
But it's like $35. If you're charging somebody $35 for a month to month, I don't want to see a fucking commercial.
Yeah.
If I'm paying the whole year up front, I don't want to see a commercial. If I'm paying for this, I don't want to see a commercial. But if you have to have commercials, definitely don't fucking have them during the match.
Yeah. And definitely don't shrink the match down to
half the size.
No, not half. It's like a sixth. Because it's
like if it's on your computer
1/3
screen, it turns into my phone on your computer screen.
Yeah.
Here's this, and then right next to it is an equal-sized commercial.
No, not equal-sized. The commercial is bigger now. It used to be equal-sized.
I must
have
have
now
missed
bigger.
those, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that's even more horseshit.
It is
yo,
less
Little
than
Caesars can't be
1/6
paying you that much fucking money.
That is less than 1/6 of the screen is the match while the match is happening. It is unacceptable, and it's ridiculous.
Bullshit.
And they're sure as hell not going to do it to ADCC.
They fucking better not.
Yeah.
Yes, they're aware that people are going to jump in and subscribe just for ADCC and then cancel. Okay, you're going to eat those losses. But the other thing is they don't realize they don't give you that monthly thing, but you can just go to any other Flow thing and be like, I'll sign up for this because it's all bundled in with it.
Yeah.
So stop doing that.
That's my kind of piece.
That's my piece on that. The matches in general were great. I fucking hate overtime.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. Stop doing fucking overtime. Yeah, but that's it on Emerald City. Great card. Keep putting them on. Hopefully there's more, you know. And yeah.
Super fun storyline, super fun guys we got to see. Again, I like that we're seeing a bunch of guys.
Same people in the finals. You have different faces. Familiar faces, but different faces.
So that does it for Emerald City Invitational. We have a fight to win that is coming up next week. We don't have any names and cards for it at this point.
Here's the thing with that. That's what I was doing a lot of looking up on. Is this going to be fight to win 197 or 198? Because technically, fight to win 197 was supposed to be this week, and it was supposed to be in Tulsa.
So they'll change
that happening? Or is it going to be 198 that's happening in Phoenix? Because the one in Tulsa was supposed to be, I know Lovato was supposed to be on that. Was supposed to be like the main event.
Okay.
But are they still doing it? Did it get canceled for whatever reason?
Yeah, we just don't know right now.
I just don't know. Maine doesn't know, and Maine would know more than anybody else. But, you know, and I understand. Like,
I'm not
yelling
recap it.
at.
Yeah, we'll recap it next week.
We'll recap it when whatever happens.
If it doesn't,
but
next week we have the preview for Who's Number One, and there are some spicy matches on that one. I'll surely get your
bring
hot
it up
takes.
a little bit. Let's talk about it a little bit, just because it's going to happen.
Josh, you're going to preview it a week early?
Not really preview it, but we can at least talk about it a little bit, because it is something that's going to happen. It's probably going to take up a lot of next week's.
So here are the matches right now. We have main event, Mikey Musumeci, the rematch versus Gio Martinez. Bantamweight title match. Curious to see if Gio can get back down to 135. That's a big ask for Gio. Gio's not a small 45er, so he can get. He'll do it. He's a professional, but we've kind of seen this match already. Again, I don't really want to preview a ton of stuff this week, because
I don't want to,
because
it's not super compelling for me, because I kind of know what's going to happen. I know
we saw it already.
Mikey, for the most part, is going to win his matches. There are still some matches that one doesn't have as much pull as like Dante Leon versus
Michael
Galvao to me. That's more interesting to me.
That's crazy. That's a welterweight, too.
That's a great matchup. Or Nicky Ryan making a return versus Jacob Couch. Like, interesting match.
First Nicky Ryan match at B Team.
Yes.
Or did he blow his leg at B Team, or was he still with New Wave?
I think he was still they were still in Puerto Rico when he blew his leg.
Okay.
Jessica Crane versus Tammy Musumeci, Hasim Rita versus Elder Cruz. That's very interesting to me. Mergali claiming to be New Wave.
Yeah, he's with DDS now. He's with Donner. Officially,
so
he is training with Gordon and John at New Wave.
I've seen it, but I'm saying, is it going to be that because he was Dream Art? Is he still going to be doing gi? Is he going to be under New Wave if he does Worlds? Is he banned from IBJJF for like a year?
For a year.
Oh, he's banned? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
For his, he did an interview, and I forgot what happened. It's been a busy week. I forgot what he said in the interview. But basically,
I haven't watched that one interview. That's newer.
Yeah, watch the interview. It's interesting. I watched a bit of it that they clipped on Instagram, and it's Mergali basically like, look, these guys are the best. I'm trained the best. I came in to learn from them, and they're teaching me, and like they're opening up a whole like other set of no-gi techniques. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he looks like versus Maidana.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a great match. Yeah. But that's another thing going into like team loyalty. It was a big, huge thing back when I started.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, you don't switch teams.
Josh, it was in the original contract of my old gym. There wasn't cross-training. Like, that was a thing in that contracts.
Ew. We always cross-trained, but it was like, you don't switch teams. And then I personally thought that was dumb. I was like, you're paying money. You do what you want to do.
Yeah. But that was the old school kind of way, though.
Mentality. You get into a Oliver Santos kind of situation where that dude like just jumps from gym to gym.
He's at TLI now. No, he's at Atos now. Sorry.
I was like, he moved again already?
Sorry. He was formerly TLI.
He was doing that previously. Left.
Well, he was at Purple. He was at TLI, I think.
Brown, Black.
Purple and Brown. He was at.
Black. He was at Atos. That's when he won Worlds, I think. He's jumped around a lot, obviously.
Oh yeah, tons.
He's been all over the place, but they're still like, these are really cool cards. And here's the thing: like, Gabriel Souza's on the fucking prelims
versus Keith Krikorian.
Awesome.
We have
Joe Dirksing versus Luke Griffin, Benji Silva versus David Garmo. Like, these are all super interesting and compelling matches. This is something, like, other than the main event, and I'm not saying the main event's going to be bad, but it's something that I've already seen, and I don't have as much interest other than Mikey's like, he's the bad person.
Yeah.
And
how much will the Heat play in the next one?
Gio's
no new friends.
Whatever. So it's just like, it's super interesting.
So that is the upcoming Who's Number One card. Super excited. We'll get into more detail next week. I think Miranda's coming on, so she'll come in with notes and like information about like they met once
being smart
and taking notes ahead of time, not just off the cuff picks. So what's your week look like, Josh? We're moving to the outro section. Anything good planned?
I got my older one wrestling now, so
nice.
That's why I was there last week. Training. Speaking of which, going into that story, Maine died, and
a little bit.
I resuscitated
a little bit.
No, it was really funny. Maine, I'm already forgetting the medical term, and it's really sad because I was in the
I had a blood sugar thing and a blood pressure drop. I overheated on Wednesday, and then everything
orthostatic blood pressure thing.
Somebody's
going to correct me, but he stood up a little too quickly. His blood pressure dropped really quickly. It fucked him all up. His blood sugar was also in the fucking toilet, so he was kind of like awake but passed out on the floor.
Yeah.
I was the first one to notice that. I grabbed Rachel, his wife, and Rachel just thought that I choked him unconscious.
I finished Josh was yelling at me versus a guy I like to train with a lot, and we were going hard, and Josh was like coaching both of us.
That was the one previous because you rolled afterwards.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't roll with Tim?
That was the
last one with Tim?
Tim.
Okay.
And then Josh was yelling at us to kill each other, basically, and he was coaching both, and we were going hard, having a great time. And I finished, and I was like, "Whoa, man, I am really, really, really hot."
You guys were fucking going after
and
it,
I was like, "Okay, I'm like feeling kind of nauseous, like 'cause I'm working so hard, like we're training hard." And I was like, "Let me like step up for a minute. Let me like see, because I'm gonna do 10 rounds straight, because that's what we do on Wednesdays." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm feeling like kind of weird. Like, let me walk outside for a second." So I opened the door. We opened the door. It's like winter here in Baltimore, so I was like, cool down.
It's March here in Baltimore, so it could be anywhere from.
It's snowed. Right now it snowed today.
It didn't snow today. It snowed 2 days ago.
It snowed Saturday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
And it's like 60 some odd degrees today.
Yeah.
And it's going to be in the 60s and into the 70s all this week.
I walked out. I was like, "Oh man, I'm kind of like lightheaded. Let me sit down." And so Tim is also sitting down too, and we're sitting. And I went, "Ooh, I'm really like kind of lightheaded." I'm like, okay, like let me just, in case something happens, let me just lay down. So I get on the edge of the mat, like next to the sitting area, and I just lay. And then I'm laying, and then like a round goes by, and I'm still laying, and I'm like, okay, like my heart's still going. Like I'm like something's not right, because I'm not like getting my composure back, and like I'm still like super lightheaded, and like, ooh, okay. Another round goes by, and somebody looks at me and goes, "You good?" And I kind of just like lay there and go, "Oh, I'm not good. Like something's wrong." And then Josh comes over. But then he was
ignored, and a whole nother round goes by, and I'm like, all right, it's been now 2 rounds. Maine's still in the same position.
And if you don't know me, like I will push through.
He will push
train
through, and
hard.
He doesn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like Maine is constantly making a noise with his mouth. That's why I like him, because I am the same way.
Yeah.
But also, he talks so much that it makes me quiet.
So if I'm laying for 3 rounds on my back in the middle of hard training, then I'm not going to bow out of.
And the room is packed.
Yeah. And there's guys I will want to train with, and so Josh walks over and looks down at me,
like, "Man,
and goes, good? You okay? Is it your back?"
No response.
And then nothing. And then he goes, "Can you move?" He goes, "Wiggle your toes." And I wiggle my toes.
Well, I asked him if he was dead. I was like, "You dead?" And he just goes, and I was like, "Oh." Okay.
And I tried to say to you, like, something's wrong, and that's what came out. And you're like,
I sat next to him for a little bit, tried to talk to him.
And then what happened is you looked at me, and I screamed at you with my eyes.
I wasn't paying attention to that. I was just like,
because I realized that I could not that I was basically awake, but like passed out, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." I'm like, and then Rachel, he calls my wife,
called over,
and then we go and then
we
sit me up.
Fortunately, we do have a lot of medical personnel that train with us, and there was a nurse practitioner in the house training as well. So we had a little bit of talk. He got some food. He got some fluid in him. As soon as like he got more food in him, he turned back into normal Maine and was just like, and I was like, all right, Maine's alive.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
That was not fun. I didn't train with you. I didn't train with him forever, and we didn't get to train, and I was pissed.
Well, that's fun, dude. I haven't trained like hard like that in a very long time, just because of like quarantine and like staying away from the gym, and then just doing like the 6 a.m. classes, which isn't to say like anybody is bad, but a lot of the people that are in there are like beginners or like blue belts.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I do is I just work on things to be like, okay, let me figure out new techniques. Like the week previous, I was at Open Mat and Damon was there, and I was like, let me do this thing that I do to the white belts to Damon.
Yeah.
Because Damon is like, now he's like 185 pounds. He's lost a little bit of weight. Mm-hmm. But he is a giant purple belt. I'm like, let me see if this works. And I did something where I was like, okay, and now I do this. And I just flipped him over, and I was like, all right, it works against other people too. So, it's different. And
it's different to go into a room with like a couple black belts and guys that are like training at comp speed.
Everybody is at comp speed. Nobody is taking a break. My fat ass is like, I'm dying here. And,
which is why you were yelling at Tim and I, because you're on the wall.
Well, at that point, I was like 8 rounds in. Like every time I was like, I'm going to take a breather, somebody would be like, hey, let's roll. And I'd be like, okay. So, and I would keep going. Finally, I just sat down. I was like, okay, I'm not rolling this round. I'm tired. And then, I started coaching the both of you because you were doing stuff, and I was like, okay, you do this, and make it more interesting. Entertain me. And that's when I noticed that you had disappeared, and then you disappeared for an extended period of time. So
that was my week, and like basically like we think I'm fine, but
in a nutshell,
it was a fun training experience. We had the scrimmage this weekend. I'm gonna work really hard this week, and then basically start preparing for ADCC. But other than that, that's all I got going on. Good to see you, Josh. Happy to have you back.
I have more work to do. Menu change again. It's like every 3 or 4 months. We're selling new food, which is fun, but also tiring. More training and more training.
Awesome. That's good. Well, good to see you back. Good to see you back, Josh. I got nothing else.
Well, if my schedule stays the way it is right now, I'll have Mondays off. So you might be hearing my voice more often.
Love it.
Maybe. I don't know.
All right. So, as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host,
Josh.
And we are the Grappling Rewind. Say the mat, whatever it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.